We're smooth. 98.1 FM is gone 29 minutes before it is 8 o'clock. This is how we welcome you, especially on to a special timeout. It's called Freshly Pressed. We get to pick up all of the local headlines and then get the analysts to help us get a better sense of it. And then also we expect to hear what the headlines, how it resonates with you this morning. And we expect those to be sent in as a WhatsApp message on 20809 4440981. We are streaming live also on youtube.com. You can search for us at Smooth 91 FM Lagos. That said, I reach out to say good morning on a Wednesday to Devoe Okorie.
Good morning, world. Good morning, morning, Lagos. It's a Wednesday. Eku, do you have food? Eku, do you have fuel?
These are two necessities right now that if you have one or both of them, you might be considered to be a bourgeois right now.
Yep.
All right, so Devoe, pick up on, let's get the slacks up from this and the Vanguard newspaper, where it comes across with a headline reading that the National Youth Service Corps, that's the NYC Trust Fund, will be abuse-free. That's the Senate assuring Nigerians. That's from the Vanguard newspaper. Talk us through this and why we should take their word for this, seeing how other interventionist agencies have gone in time past.
Yes. Why the story really was quite catching was the fact that it's the National Assembly, so that people have a good idea of who we're referring to, that are actually speaking. They are saying that they're on just about passing the act to establish a National Youth Service Corps Trust Fund. This trust fund is a fund which will be empowered to grant or to give corporates, that's corporates who have completed their term, some level of soft loan, okay, some kind of fund to support their entrepreneurial activity once they finish from the youth service. As you know, it's a major problem, employment in this country, where the few jobs available cannot take up the bulk of people who come out of our tertiary school systems. And you know, within our system, after you finish your tertiary education, be it 4 to 10 years, you will then have to serve, okay? You'll serve your nation for a year. So they're saying, and what was peculiar about this pronouncement by the National Assembly is that they said, oh, this fund will not suffer the compromise like NPower. NPower was part of the conditional cash transfer. Now, this is where it gets interesting, because they gave their reasons as to why this would not happen, that they're going to put in place checks and balances. And let's hear what the checks and balances they're referring to. One, they said it will be a standalone. It will not be like a subsection of any other scheme. One. Two, they said it will be supervised by the presidency. Which presidency are we referring to? Is it the same presidency that established and that supervises the NDDC, that we had the infamous Honorable Minister off your mic? Is that the presidency we want supervising this money, or the one that is involved with the humanitarian and social disaster affairs ministry? Well, they've also said the National Assembly will also be part of the supervision. I'm asking, which supervision is the National Assembly referring to? Is it the constituencies that we are aware and not aware of how constituency votes are being utilized that don't ever get to the people, or only 1/10 gets to them? Is it the same National Assembly that was part of a supervision of the Minister of Labor's hiring of what do you call them? Vocational jobs during the Kiamo era when he was Minister of Labor, and they were supposed to hire them and pay them 20,000 that we never saw, as even the National Assembly said they didn't know those who were employed. They've also said that the DG of the NYSC plus the CSOs will support this supervision. But my point is this, you see, no matter how they crop up or they make up the checks and balances that are supposed to check the implementation of this trust fund in Nigeria, if they're not willing to go after those who had misappropriated or compromised those schemes that they're referring to, If they're not willing to catch those people, then I don't think they're actually serious about putting a trust fund in place that they will hold dear to the people. Because you see, corruption is still rife in this nation. We have to speak the hard facts. You can't continue. We're literally in this state as an economy simply because of bad governance, simply because even though you had brilliant ideas, as long as there were corrupt leakages in the ministries, departments, and agencies, it's not going to get to the point that we will reap the benefits. Now, my question is, clip the mouths of those who took the last money, catch one or two rats here and there. You still have crude oil theft. You have subsidy theft. Apart from subsidy theft, subsidies being granted without approval by the National. Is it the same National Assembly that's speaking that they will not allow one other fund to be corrupted? No, I don't think so. I don't agree, and I leave it to the Nigerian people to make their judgments as well.
As we rest this headline, if you can do this just in 30 seconds.
Right.
From this breach or deficit of trust, should we outsource this monitoring of agencies that are to be created or existing ones? Who do we outsource it to now if Nigerians cannot even oversee this without this
I
question
didn't say
mark?
Nigerians. I have issues with government. Government is not capable of checks and balancing itself, of monitoring itself. If you like, put all the agencies, as long as the whole system is infested with corrupt people, it cracks and leakages, ants and what do you call them? Kangaroos and elephants will still get a hold of that money. So I think at this point they can work with the civil society as well as the private sector to engineer some of these schemes. Just like you see the NNPC. The NNPC is still profitable simply because it has private sector international operators who do the work. And that's why they're able to bring back a profit. Show me where we as a country with only ourselves have gone to work and we brought back a profit. I leave that challenge to Nigerians.
Leaving the challenge, Nigerians will pick it up, but let's know that we'd also expect to hear from the listener how the headlines resonate with them this morning on 0809-444-0981. That will be where to read the messages. So I say good morning to Lakunle, Yusuf. Good morning, Lakunle.
Morning, good morning. Good morning.
So Lakunle, let's look at what the Nation newspaper is looking like from this headline, where it states here, reps passed state police bill for second reading. Is this coming timely or a little bit late in the day, or however late, but it's the effort that we can commend at this time?
They always say that the best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago. The next best time is now. I think that finally where quite a number of Nigerians have always thought that we should have been long before now, especially in the last 25 years, we've had this argument. Guess what? The only argument against where we are today has always been the governors we hijack, the governors we hijack. But you see, my point about this from day one had always been, if we keep saying we are afraid of doing something new, obviously the one we're doing isn't working. So why are we afraid to change it? So it's good news for me, in my opinion, that we are taking this step. Then now, the worry there would now be, how quickly can we get this up and running? Across the nation, we have what we call, or what everybody says, youth unemployment. And I am certain and I'm sure, I'm clear in my mind that we can actually recruit these younger people to form the bedrock of this outfit. I have an idea of how much Lagos State government has spent over the last 12 years in supporting the federal police, and yet there's still so much to do. When push comes to shove, the man who is receiving the support from the governor will disobey the governor. Do you understand what I mean? Because his own command structure is some 1 hour, 15 minutes away by air and 14 hours away by road. and several thousands of kilometers away. You know,
There's even a ready example sometime not too long ago where in one of those estates where a police officer was dispatched to, and he said his gas in Abuja is responding. That was when the governor showed up. So
exactly. So and then we call the governors the chief security officer of a state when they don't have this control. Now, to the hopefully when this is done with, this is still at the House of Reps. I assume then that it will still get to the Senate, and the two houses will jointly approve this, and they can get the state's House of Assemblies as well to also agree to this, so that we can have 2/3 of these numbers to do this, so that we can quickly move to the next stage. Then the next stage will then be what is then the Nigerian factor. We'll now start to speak to who and how to form the police. Please, maybe I'm speaking too soon, but I need to put it on the table. Yep. When it's time to do this, please don't let us bring anybody from the current police system, as it either retired or whatever, to come and help us to form this police system. We need a clean break for what exists today as policing in Nigeria. So what we have today is not, I'm saying, okay, so the templates of what we want to do exist everywhere.
Is it possible to
get... You do not necessarily need somebody, a former IG, to be the champion of this in any state. Okay, so, my state has a current IG now, for example. Let's look for a state that's never produced an IG or has never produced a senior police officer in that regard, maybe a retired AIG or whatever. So what happens in that place? Who would they call? They'll call a soldier. Don't forget, soldiers are not trained to do policing.
Civil, that's the civil.
Exactly. So that is the mistake then we will then make. Then they will now bring the template of the federal police to come and start the state police, and then we'll be all over the place again. And then in making these laws, we need to be very clear from day one. What will be the jurisdiction of federal police and state police, what each one can do, so that down the line we have not created another monster that will be fighting another monster that the grasses around the elephants when they fight will suffer. But
which monster?
By and large, when you have the federal police and state police fighting each other over matter that is clear or whose jurisdiction it should be. So in all of this, we must be deliberate and clear-minded. We must leave politics, we must leave personal interests out of this. We must be very clear and deliberate how we want to do it, what we're going to do, and how it's going to get done, so that the real issue that we're worried about, which is security, is solved as quickly as possible.
All right, Devoe, as you want to add a few comments to this headline, would also like you to help us understand, is there any loss of pride, national, if we look around African states who have been able to implement state policing, if we also would, since we feel we don't want any of these persons who have been part of the police force in the country to come taint this new force coming up in the state, can we reach out to countries in the sub-region to say, hey, come, let's do this to get it started with an independent mind? Devoe.
You see, this creation of state police is not even rocket science. Lakunle, you mentioned about we need to be clear-headed, and that's all. You need to be very clear-headed about resolving your security problems. What we're simply doing is increasing manpower, because we have just 350,000 police policing 200 million people over a large size of a country called Nigeria, with half of them doing private policing. Come on, let's face the hard facts and realities here. We are simply just increasing manpower. The federal government only operates 50% of the FAC, meaning the states have to play their role. So Tinubu got it right in his manifesto when he said we needed about 1 million police. That was an exact fact. Now, that is the reference you have with other countries, especially South Africa. Now, it's like saying, oh, because we have a federal government, if we create state governments, oh, states will just be too powerful and do what they like. Come on now, let's not do that. Put the laws in place.
But that's what exists already right now.
I understand, but my point is that does not stop the fact that we need to address the manpower lag. Gentlemen, and you need to fund it. So the point here is states can pay their own contribution fund their police, put the laws in place. Remember, there's a role for the people. We don't just create these things so that everybody will sit back and wonder what happened. No, it is an all-round responsibility. We can't, even the Amotekuns, the Ebubeagus, the what's the name that operates in Kano? All these what do you call them? Pseudo false caricatures of what a police force should be need to end. We need to stop using our own hands to and rubbing ourselves with dirt. We need to stop this. Let's do it properly. Okay. Let's do it properly. Enough of all, because every day we keep reporting insecurity cases and refuse to do the right thing. Let the states who have the funding at the moment with removal of subsidy fund the police, add up the manpower, and address our security problems squarely.
Okay. So as we drift to get the Nation newspaper, the Guardian newspaper, the question hanging over the creation of state police once again and addressing the fears would be, if we for the fear of a baby or a toddler falling every time she attempts to stand to walk, and we hold the baby down, would the baby ever walk? A question hanging there. Devoe and Lakunle, stay out of this. Let the question hang in the air. Moving on. Devoe, are you ready? Let's get this next one in. There's supposed to be from the Guardian newspaper. Anti-smuggling plan. Customs to distribute seized food items to the public. That's what the item is right now. So help us dig into this and how this would help assuage the rising cry of we are hungry, we are hungry. Help us, federal government.
Yes. As you know, apart from the security issues, Nigeria is facing a cost of living crisis. And at the top of that cost of living crisis is the 4 pain points: the cost of food. Many cannot afford a meal a day. The cost of health services, the cost of energy, that's power, fuel, transportation, the cost of transport. Now, because food is what touches the body immediately, the federal government is literally running helter and skelter, because from the few plans that they have given, I don't see them actually creating the right solutions. Because the NLC is about to go on a protest next week, simply because everything they agreed with this Shettima and Tinubu-led administration have not come through. Okay. Now, to that extent, with different cities beginning their own individual civil protest, and you hear the stuff of "we are hungry," Egbin, you understand? There has been some movement by customs. So we've been hearing reports of how they've been seizing trucks loaded with Nigerian food going across the border. Customs is saying, oh, they're doing this as an anti-inflation strategy to stop, this smuggling that is taking place. Now, my first questions come to place. Now they're even adding that they'll confiscate the illegal food exports and share the rice, beans, and maize among the Nigerian people. Now, once again, we are excreting on ourselves, for the lack of a better word. Now, let me understand, first of all, I'm not aware of a trade ban on exports. I am not aware that you cannot sell your goods outside the country. As long as there's no trade ban, where is customs getting the authority to do this? Secondly, the only reason people are moving goods abroad is because right now, with the fall of the Naira, right, it has made Nigerian goods extremely cheap. If you remember, like a year or two ago, the Nigerian currency, Naira, was stronger than the CFA. But the CFA is currently stronger than the Naira. So what it means is that if you have CFA, you have dollar, you have euro, you have franc, you can buy food in Nigeria very cheap. That is what is causing that movement. Now, what happens is that the same thing, you cannot refer to the fact that even though you need it, you cannot refer to the fact that people are moving their goods abroad as smuggling. It is not a crime. The same way people move PMS from Nigeria to neighboring nations, because it attracts 3 times the cost in those places because we were subsidizing ours. So the point is, I expect Nigeria to take advantage of this opportunity and address the real issue, which is the supply side, meaning farmers are not able to meet up. Why? Insecurity issues, lack of roads, lack of equipment, lack of irrigation services, lack of the fact that they're not planting during dry season. These are the issues the federal government should be sorting out. By the time they address those issues, you will have enough for yourselves internally. You'll also have enough to make money from the export that goes, because remember, for anybody that exports, they pay tariffs and co. So I really do not understand what is going on here. and why customs is feeling that they're doing us a service when they're actually rendering us into a more detrimental stage. Would you like it, as in our current state of famine, right? That even though, because farming, you don't plant maize today and it grows tomorrow, right? Nigerians are hungry now. At some point, the federal government may be forced to import. Would you like it if the countries that we're expected to buy from tell us, no, we are not selling to you? We have to be careful about the actions that we take.
No, thanks, Devoe. I'd like to go over now to Lakunle. Lakunle, I'd just like you to speak to, the safety of these foods that may be released, knowing that there might be some fears that some of these items may have been warehoused for over months and probably over a year or two. And then now it is because also this idea of reaching out with these items to the public is a Fela template. You might also remember that when he said instead of burning, you could do it cheaper and just get it out to the people. So speak to that, and then we go over to the next item.
Basically, that was actually my first response when somebody asked the question, how are they going to distribute it? Blah, blah, said, at least it's better than the bond where they sweet them past before. We grew up singing that song, not really thinking through the implication of what was being said. But thank God this time around, something spoken better to them, and they are doing this. Ordinarily, smuggled food materials are not necessarily unsafe, right? At some point, government bureaucracy is what allows some of those things to go into some storage, and then days of pushing letters before it gets approval for, and then before it comes back for it to be destroyed or whatever to be done with it. So I'm assuming that these are recently seized smuggled goods that are still safe for consumption. I will also assume that food technologists, nutritionists are of the opinion, a lot of them are of the opinion that food items don't expire. They only lose quality in its value, right? So when they write best before on food, it doesn't mean that you cannot consume it after the date that is on it. It's just that it is now of lower quality than guaranteed within the period of when it said it is. So those are also some of the things that we also need to consider. But I want to assume then that it is food that is good enough to consume.
Right. So this leads us to the Vanguard newspaper with the headline, Shatima, that's the vice president, seeks adoption of technology to enhance ease of doing business. How far so far with this business, ease of doing business, Pebek?
So let me start by saying that at least let's in the scheme of things, it appears that governance is a continuum. We have obeyed that dictum. So in respect of this is of doing business. It was in the office of the vice president of the previous administration, and this current vice president seemed to have taken it on. So kudos to them for that, for not abandoning it. Now to the crux of the matter. I still think that there's still a lot to be done. How easy is it today to register a business in Nigeria? How easy is it today to access those things that will make your business run easily? How easy is it today that you don't have to be harassed by extraneous taxmen on the road and so on and so forth? So when we say ease of doing business, it's not just about technology. Technology is an enhancer. It is not in itself the end to a means or a mean to an end in its entirety, right? So you deploy, you say you have a website where I can go and do the registration. How functional is that website? So I come to Nigeria, I need to have a Nigerian driver's license. How easily can I register and go to get captured for to have the driver's license? How easily do I go to do my vehicular check at the VIS office when it's time to go and do it for my business vehicles? So in all the jobs, what technology can you put in place to make all this work? There's still that element of human intervention, right? So what is the response of the humans that will use this technology? Have we trained them enough? How many government offices or agencies have functional websites today that you can get all the information you need from it? How many of them are up to date? How many of them are that ordinarily we are talking about passports, for example? Let's assume that that's even for Nigerians. See where we are with issuing passports, right? So in its entirety, whatever technology we're saying we're going to be adopting, we need knowledge, we need training, and we need it to be functional.
It is still freshly pressed on Smooth 98.1 FM. Still got the analysts in here, Devoe, Okorie, and Lakunle Yusuf helping us understand better the headlines this morning. And so I've got a ton of messages waiting, and we just need to go over there to pick some of them up and then get back to a few papers before we sign off. Ibukun is here. Ibukun from K2 says, Lakunle, imagine if we had a state police in the last election. The police is not a recruitment hub for young people. The same governors owe doctors, nurses, and civil servants. Why don't they have special dedicated recruitment for states, which the states will fund and the federal government will direct the debit from the FAC? The truth is that we are not mature enough. Ibukun from K2 has that to say on the state police thing. Then comes Dari Olabode from Surulere. It says, Lakunle, that's comes for you. Subsidy removal looked like a laudable initiative too, but who are those benefiting from it? The same politicians will be the ones to benefit from the NYC Trust Fund too. How well is ETF, the Educational Trust Fund, doing right now? Food for thought. Now goes JP's message, comes in saying, Lakunle, it's almost impossible. The state police doesn't have old and new in the mix. You see ex-Marines and ex-police and ex-federal intelligence retired to state or country or other places. It will be a mix, but you need organizations like the KPMG, etc., to implement a framework that is signed into law. That's JP's thoughts. James from Asaba comes in. Not only do we need the state police, we also need local government police or sheriff system. It helps to bring the security much closer to the people with clear-cut jurisdiction. And then we go over to Ikeja for Latif. We need experienced hands for the state police if you must start it. So you can't discountenance that now. That's what he's saying. Ajayi Olunilua from Magodo GRE comes up. He says, the bill on state police is a good development. Whatever the fears about the role of governors, let the law establishing it be specific about its areas of jurisdiction and that of the federal police to avoid conflict. Then we go to that's John Ofego back here. We see your message. Then comes Damilola. Damilola's thoughts this morning from Lagos Island says, we have an Export Control Act for certain food items, farm produce. This is where customs get their power to act and seize illegal food exports. It was passed by the Obasanjo administration to guarantee food security. India banned the export of rice in 2023 when they didn't have enough for local consumption. So this is not new or strange policy that Nigeria is executing. Then Samuel's thought is here. Please, the Federal and National Assembly should forget about trying to convince Nigerians they can manage the proposed NYC Trust Fund. They should just hand it over to a name mentioned in the banking sector who's seen for excellence right now. Since 2015 has been doing similar thing with many Nigerians, including this person sending in the message, have benefited without knowing anyone or paying anybody. On the state police, I have always maintained that it is better we have regional police. In that way, states in the region will contribute to fund it, so the issue of funding is addressed, and no particular state governor will have control over it. They can even hire a commissioner from anywhere for efficiency. That's what he says. Abbas is here waiting. Abbas Oladekbo says, how can questions say that it doesn't see anything the government is doing to check the issues of food insecurity when the federal government has released some metric tons of certain food and they are still providing hectares of land for farming and doubling on security? Devoe should go and find out properly why customs is seizing the food that they're going to, instead of trying to be emotional about it. There is no restriction on export of food if they are properly documented for exportation and not smuggled. Is Devoe advocating for smuggling because of the food crisis we have now? And we have issues that not proper to start blowing up an already bad situation. We don't believe in all the institutions. So we do want to believe when we have not even ready to take up a political position. Devoe, 2027, it looks like you might be dusting up your political CV. Now let's go to Emeka. Okay, I see Anthony's message. Anthony says, customs is good description of hypocrisy. On the one hand, they have turned on the switch or trigger of inflation through the outrageous tariff duties and other, try to cushion the same hardship they cause through unlawful seizure. This is Tony from Marine Beach. And I see Fabian's message from Ekpe Abimbola. I see your message. Joseph Menye, I see your message. Thank you all so much. But this is where we must draw the curtain this morning. Thank you, Devoe Okorie, for your time.
Thank you.
And special thanks to Lakunle Yusuf also.
Thank you so much for having me.
And that's the sides of Freshly Pressed. Stay with me at about 8:15 a.m. It will be time for us to get into everything sports inside the locker room.